Christmas Eve, 1971. A plane carrying 92 passengers takes off from Lima, Peru. Destination: a small jungle city called Pucallpa. The flight is supposed to take 1 hour. 17-year-old Juliane Koepcke is sitting next to her mother. She is wearing a white mini dress, white sandals. She has a small Christmas gift on her lap. She is excited. She is going to spend Christmas with her father. Then, the plane flies directly into a storm. Lightning strikes the fuel tank. The aircraft breaks apart at 10,000 feet. In seconds, 92 people are falling through the night sky. Over the Amazon rainforest, there are no parachutes. There is no warning. There is only the dark and the fall. Juliane Koepcke fell for 2 miles, still strapped to her seat. And she survived. But surviving the fall was not the hard part. What came next was 11 days alone, in one of the most dangerous places on Earth, with no food, no map, no help, just a 17-year-old girl. And the jungle. This is her story. Juliane Koepcke was born in Lima, Peru, on October 10, 1954. But a city is not where she grew up. Her parents were world-renowned German zoologists who moved their family deep into the Amazon rainforest when Juliane was just a child. They built a research station called Panguana, a tiny outpost of science surrounded by a vast, untamed wilderness. So, while other kids were learning their way around schools and suburbs, Juliane was learning the ways of the jungle. It became her classroom and her playground. She learned how to move silently through the dense undergrowth, how to tell which plants were safe to eat and which were deadly. She learned how to read the currents of a river, how to find her way by the sun and the stars. She learned that the jungle, for all its dangers, follows a set of rules. And if you understand those rules, you can survive. Her father, Hans Wilhelm Koepcke, was one of Peru's most respected experts on birds. Her mother, Maria, was an equally brilliant zoologist. Juliane looked up to them both, absorbing their knowledge and their passion for the natural world. By the time she was 17, she wasn't just a regular teenager. She was a young woman shaped by the wilderness, hardened by it, and in tune with its rhythms. The jungle had been quietly preparing her for a test she could never have imagined. In December 1971, Juliane had just graduated from high school. To celebrate, she and her mother planned to fly from Lima to Panguana to spend Christmas with her father. They booked 2 seats on LANSA Flight 508, scheduled for December 24th. It was a simple decision, a mother and daughter heading home for the holidays. But it was a decision that would change everything, leading to one of the most incredible survival stories ever told. What happened on that flight, and in the 11 days that followed, is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the lessons learned in the heart of the Amazon. And that's the story we're going to tell today. LANSA, or Líneas Aéreas Nacionales S.A., was a Peruvian airline with a deeply troubled history. Even before the events of Christmas Eve 1971, the airline had already lost 2 planes in devastating crashes. Safety concerns had been repeatedly raised. Warnings had been issued. But on that day, none of it seemed to matter. The flight was completely full. 92 passengers and crew members boarded the Lockheed Electra at Lima's airport. The atmosphere inside the terminal was festive. People were heading home for Christmas, their arms full of gifts. Children were buzzing with excitement, and families were laughing, ready to be reunited. Among them were a 17-year-old girl named Juliane Koepcke and her mother, Maria. They found their seats, settled in, and prepared for the short flight. The plane took off without a hitch, climbing smoothly into the afternoon sky. For the first 30 minutes, everything was perfectly normal. The seatbelt sign was off, and people were moving about the cabin. Then, without warning, the weather turned. The Amazon basin is one of the most volatile weather regions on Earth. Massive storms can form in an instant, growing faster than any radar can track. The pilots made a fateful decision and flew directly into a colossal thunderstorm looming over the vast jungle canopy. The turbulence was immediate and terrifyingly violent. The plane was tossed around like a toy. Overhead lockers burst open, sending bags and Christmas presents flying across the cabin. Passengers screamed in panic. Juliane instinctively gripped her mother's hand. Her mother looked at her, her face calm but resigned, and said, "That is the end." Those were the last words Juliane would ever hear her mother say. In that very moment, a bolt of lightning struck the plane's right fuel tank. The wing exploded in a flash of light. The sheer force of the blast tore the aircraft apart in midair. At 10,000 feet above the endless green of the Amazon rainforest, 92 people were suddenly plunging through the dark, stormy Christmas Eve sky. There was no explosion inside the cabin, no fire, no final, bracing moment of warning before impact. 1 second, Juliane was on a plane, surrounded by the sounds of a holiday flight. The next, she was falling through open air. She was still strapped to her row of 3 seats, pinned between 2 empty ones. Still wearing her white dress, still holding nothing. She fell for 2 miles, spinning through the air as the jungle canopy below rushed up to meet her. She later described hearing the deafening roar of the wind in her ears, and then absolute silence. Imagine falling 2 miles from the sky, strapped to your seat, and crashing into the densest jungle on Earth. This is the story of Juliane Koepcke. She plummeted into the Amazon rainforest at incredible speed. But something miraculous happened. The dense jungle canopy, with its layers upon layers of thick branches and leaves, acted like a series of natural safety nets. Each layer broke her fall, slowing her down bit by bit, until she finally hit the forest floor. And then, everything went black. She woke up the next morning. It was Christmas Day, 1971. She was lying on the damp ground, still strapped into her airplane seat. She was alive. Following the methodical training from her scientist parents, she immediately took inventory of her body. Her right collarbone was broken. Her right eye was so swollen she could barely see out of it. A deep gash sliced across her right arm. Her legs were a mess of cuts and bruises. She'd lost a sandal, and her white dress was torn to shreds. She had no food, no water, no map, and no compass. All she found was a small bag of candy that had landed nearby. That was it. She called out for her mother, who was on the same flight. No answer. She called again, her voice swallowed by the immense silence of the jungle, broken only by the sounds of birds, insects, and the distant patter of rain. She was completely, terrifyingly alone. Every muscle in her body screamed in protest as she slowly forced herself to stand up. The pain was excruciating, but she stood, because she knew, with absolute certainty, that if she stayed where she was, she would die. And Juliane Koepcke had not fallen 2 miles from the sky just to die sitting still in the jungle. Her journey was just beginning. This is a story of incredible resilience and the will to survive against all odds. It reminds us that even when we feel lost and broken, the first step, no matter how painful, is the most important one. If you're ever facing your own jungle, please know that help is available and you don't have to face it alone. Before we follow Juliane into the jungle, it's crucial to understand exactly what she was walking into. The Amazon rainforest is the largest tropical rainforest on Earth, a sprawling, untamed wilderness covering 5.5 million square kilometers. This isn't just a big forest, it's a world teeming with life, much of which is incredibly dangerous. Imagine stepping into a place that's home to jaguars, the apex predators of the Americas. Picture giant anacondas silently gliding through the murky waters alongside caimans, a cousin of the alligator, waiting just below the surface. On the forest floor, you have bullet ants, whose sting is famously described as the most painful insect sting known to man, like being shot. And in the rivers, there's the notorious kangaroo fish, a tiny parasite that can enter the human body through any opening it can find. The Amazon hosts more species of deadly insects than anywhere else on the planet. Now, add the environment itself. The humidity is a thick, suffocating blanket that never lifts. It rains every single day, turning the ground into a muddy swamp. The canopy of trees overhead is so dense that in many areas, sunlight never even touches the forest floor, casting everything in a permanent twilight. It's a place where people get lost and are simply never found again. Entire search and rescue teams, fully equipped with radios, modern gear, and extensive training, have ventured into the Amazon looking for survivors only to disappear themselves, swallowed by the jungle. Juliane Koepcke had none of that. No gear, no radio, no team. When she awoke on the jungle floor, she had a broken collarbone, a deep gash on her leg, and only one sandal on her foot. Her dress was torn, and in her pocket, she had a small bag with just 11 pieces of hard candy. That was it. But she possessed one thing that no one else who fell from that plane had: It was something more valuable than any survival kit. She had a childhood spent living in the Amazon, learning its secrets, its rhythms, and its rules directly from her scientist parents. And that knowledge was about to be her only chance. Imagine you're 17, falling 2 miles from the sky, still strapped to your airplane seat. This isn't a nightmare. This was Juliane Koepcke's reality. When she woke up, she was alone in the vast Amazon rainforest, the sole survivor of a plane crash. She had a broken collarbone, a deep gash on her arm, and one eye swollen shut. But she also had a crucial piece of advice from her father, a biologist. If you're lost in the jungle, find a stream and follow it. It will lead to civilization. And so she did. She found a small stream near the crash site and began her impossible journey. The first few days were a blur of pain and disorientation. She stumbled past the haunting debris of the plane, scattered luggage, Christmas presents, and even the bodies of fellow passengers, still in their seats. She couldn't find her mother. With only one shoe, the jungle floor tore at her bare foot. She had a small bag of candy, which she rationed carefully, and she drank water directly from the stream. At night, she lay on the cold, muddy ground, surrounded by the unseen creatures of the dark. On the second day, she waded through a deeper part of the stream. Caimans watched her from the banks. She remembered her father's words again. Stay slow, stay calm. They attack fast movement. So she moved with deliberate calm, and the caimans let her pass. By the fourth day, her candy was gone. Hunger became a constant, gnawing pain. She found berries but didn't know if they were safe to eat, so she left them. Then, things got worse. On the fifth day, she noticed the deep wound on her arm was moving. She looked closer and saw a horrifying sight. Dozens of maggots were writhing inside, eating her flesh. Her father had once told her gasoline could kill them, but where would she find gasoline in the middle of the Amazon? She had no choice but to keep walking. The stream grew into a river, and her weakness intensified. Sometimes the banks were impassable, forcing her to wade for hours through piranha-infested waters. Stopping meant dying, so she pushed on. On the ninth day, she saw it, a small wooden boat tied to the riverbank, with a small shelter nearby. It was a lifeline. Inside the camp, she found a container of gasoline. Gritting her teeth against the blinding pain, she poured the fuel into her wound and pulled out over 30 maggots. Then, she ate the food she found and slept under a roof for the first time in 9 agonizing days. She waited. On the 11th day, 3 local fishermen found her, a girl barely recognizable, emaciated, and covered in wounds. They cared for her overnight, and then took her by boat to the nearest village. From there, she was flown to a hospital. 11 days after falling from the sky, Juliane Koepcke had walked out of the jungle, alive. On Christmas Day, 1971, search and rescue teams began a grim task. They were looking for any sign of LANSA Flight 508, which had vanished over the Peruvian Amazon. When they finally located the wreckage, the scene was devastating. Of the 92 people who had been on board, it seemed there were no survivors. But then, a miracle. A 17-year-old girl named Juliane Koepcke had walked out of the jungle, alive. For 10 days, Juliane, still strapped to her seat, fell 2 miles from the sky. She survived the fall with a broken collarbone, a deep gash on her leg, and one eye swollen shut. Alone, injured, and surrounded by the dense, unforgiving rainforest, she remembered the survival lessons her father, a famous zoologist, had taught her. She knew that following a stream would eventually lead her to a larger river, and a river would lead to civilization. So she started walking. She waded through waist-deep water, battling insects, hunger, and the constant fear of what lurked in the jungle. She found a small bag of candy from the crash, which was her only food for days. The gash on her arm became infested with maggots, a sight that would horrify anyone. But Juliane, remembering a story about her dog, knew that the maggots were eating the dead tissue and preventing a worse infection. She endured unimaginable pain and pushed forward. After 9 days, she stumbled upon a small hut and a boat belonging to local lumberjacks. Exhausted and weak, she waited. When the men returned, they were shocked to find her. They treated her wounds with local remedies and took her by canoe to a nearby village. From there, she was airlifted to a hospital. She was the sole survivor, or so she thought. In the hospital, Juliane learned the heartbreaking truth. Her mother, Maria, had also survived the initial crash. She had been found days later, but her injuries were severe, and without Juliane's knowledge of the jungle, she couldn't save herself. She had died alone, waiting for a rescue that never came. This devastating news sent Juliane into a long silence. The investigation that followed revealed that the airline had recklessly flown into a dangerous thunderstorm, ignoring multiple safety warnings. LANSA was shut down soon after, but it was too late for the 91 people who lost their lives. Juliane Koepcke spent weeks recovering in a hospital bed. Her physical wounds, the gashes and broken bones, they healed. But the emotional ones, the ones no one could see, they took much longer. She eventually returned to Germany, her parents' home country, to finish her education. Following in their footsteps, she studied biology, then zoology. She didn't just study, she excelled, earning a PhD and becoming a brilliant scientist in her own right. And then, she did something truly remarkable. She returned to the Amazon. She went back to Panguana, the very research station her parents had lovingly built. The jungle, this immense, terrifying force that had swallowed her whole and nearly killed her, became the place she dedicated her life to protecting. Think about that for a moment. Most people would run as far away as possible, but Juliane ran towards it. For decades, she has been a tireless advocate for the Amazon, studying and conserving its incredibly rich ecosystem. Her journey is a testament to the power of the human spirit. She even wrote a memoir about her experience, titled "When I Fell from the Sky." In it, she shares a powerful thought: "The jungle gave me back my life. How could I not give my life back to it?" Today, Dr. Juliane Koepcke is one of Peru's most respected wildlife conservationists. Her story is more than just about surviving a plane crash. It's living proof that survival isn't just a physical act. It's a choice you make over and over again. It's in every hour you keep going, every step you take forward, and every single moment you decide not to give up. Her life teaches us that even from the most profound tragedies, we can find a purpose, a reason to not just live, but to thrive and give back. On Christmas Eve, 1971, LANSA Flight 508 broke apart midair during a severe thunderstorm over the Peruvian Amazon. 92 people were on that plane. 91 of them perished. Only one survived the 2-mile fall into the dense jungle below. Her name was Juliane Koepcke, and she was just 17 years old. How does a 17-year-old girl, still strapped to her seat, survive a fall from 10,000 feet and then endure 11 days alone in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth? Was she the strongest person on that flight? Probably not. Was she simply the luckiest? Maybe, but luck only gets you so far. The real reason Juliane survived is far more fascinating. It wasn't a random miracle. It was a lifetime of quiet preparation. You see, Juliane wasn't a stranger to the jungle. She was the daughter of 2 renowned zoologists who had moved to the Amazon to study its ecosystem. She grew up there. The jungle wasn't a terrifying, alien world to her. It was her childhood backyard. She knew its secrets. She knew which streams led to larger rivers, and that following a river was the key to finding civilization. She knew which insects were dangerous and which fruits were poisonous. When she found a boat moored by a hut, she remembered her father telling her that a certain type of gasoline could be used to treat fly larvae in open wounds, so she treated her own severe infestation. Juliane didn't survive despite the Amazon. She survived because of it. All those years spent observing, learning, and living alongside nature had equipped her with a unique set of skills. The knowledge she absorbed as a child, perhaps without even realizing its profound importance, became her lifeline when everything else was stripped away. Her incredible story holds a powerful lesson for all of us. Think about your own life, the things you're learning, the experiences you're having, the places you're growing up in. You might not see their immediate purpose. You might think they're insignificant. But every piece of knowledge, every skill, every challenge overcome is a tool being added to your personal survival kit. We are all quietly being prepared for something. We don't know what challenges lie ahead, what unexpected falls we might have to endure. But the things that shape us now, the passions we follow, the books we read, the lessons our parents teach us, are the very things we will reach for when we need them most. You never truly know what you're being prepared for until the moment arrives. Slow, thoughtful music begins and continues underneath the narration. Have you ever wondered what you're made of? I mean, really, What lies at the core of your being? When life is easy, the answer seems simple. But what happens when everything is stripped away? When you're left with nothing but yourself? History is filled with stories that ask this very question. Stories of ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances, forced to discover the depths of their own strength. These aren't just tales from dusty old books. They are powerful testaments to the human spirit. They show us what we are truly capable of when faced with the unimaginable. We often think of survival as a brutal, instinctual thing. But what these stories reveal is something much deeper. They show us that survival is an art, a science, a tapestry woven from the threads of our past. Think about it. The things that shape us quietly in our early years, the knowledge we gather, the experiences we live through, the places we grow up in, they aren't just random memories. They become the tools we reach for when everything else falls away. A fragment of a poem learned in childhood might become a beacon of hope in darkness. A simple skill taught by a grandparent could be the key to staying alive. A memory of a peaceful landscape might become a sanctuary for the mind when the body is imprisoned. You never know what you are being prepared for. Every book you read, every conversation you have, every challenge you overcome, it's all adding to your arsenal. It's building a reservoir of resilience inside you, one you might not even know exists, until the moment you need it. That's the profound lesson history offers us, a lesson that goes far beyond dates and events. It's a lesson in what it means to be human. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Like this video and subscribe to our channel. Because history is not just what happened. It is a mirror reflecting what human beings are capable of when everything is taken away. And we are here to remind you of that every single week. Thank you for watching.